Hello guys, so as you might know that in my previous video I unboxed and installed the Hobbywing Max 6 G2, but since that did not work well, I have the Max 6 version with me. I'll be installing this on my X-Maxx. So the Max 6 is rated up to 160 amps and it's a sensorless ESC unlike the Max 6 G2. This one is also waterproof and you can program this as well. So quickly I'll unbox this and install it on my Traxxas X-Maxx and share the results. We do get these extra motor wires. Other than that, we have the heat shrink, some zip tie and the 3M double-sided tape along with the instruction manual and some stickers. So the Max 6 has these programmable options that we can adjust. The main difference between the Max 6 G2 and the Max 6 is that on the Max 6 we have the fan port, and through that you can also program the ESC, and the cooling fan on the Max 6 is on all the time, unlike the Max 6 G2 where the cooling fan would only work when the ESC heats up. And even the Max 6 is rated up to 8S LiPo battery. Here's a comparison between the Max 6 and the Max 6 G2. The design and form factor is almost the same. It's just that the G2 can be programmed through the Bluetooth module and it's rated up to 200 amps of constant current. So on the regular Max 6 we have the power switch with the set button to calibrate and change the settings. So let me just solder the power connectors. Alright, so I've soldered the XT90 connectors on the Max 6. And I did this off camera just to keep the video short. So quickly I'll install this on the truck. So here I've lined up all the three ESCs that we have. The Max 6, the VXL 8S and the Max 6 G2. The G2 is the only ESC out of these which has a higher amp rating. So it's suitable if you want to have more power and punch. The VXL 8S and the Max 6 are almost identical in terms of amp rating. It's just that the Max 6 is a bit more programmable and is more reliable, I can say. Now since the Max 6 G2 would stutter on a sensorless motor, I reached out to Hobbywing and they have specified that this problem will be fixed in a firmware update very soon. So I'm actually waiting for the new firmware to be released and then test it. And obviously I'll share that in the upcoming video very soon. However, if you want to use the Max 6 G2, just buy a censored motor which is compatible with this and you should be good to go. Now to mount the ESC, I'm going to use this double-sided foam tape with an additional layer just to add some cushioning. If you use the 3M double-sided tape and if you want to remove the ESC, then it's a lot more difficult. Alright, so the ESC has been wired up to the receiver. Now we can connect the motor wires in any order. So I'm just going to connect them in the default orientation. As always, I've centered the trims and set the endpoints to 100%. Plug in the batteries. Now to program the Max 6, we have to hold the set button while turning on the ESC so that the ESC enters the radio calibration stage. So once the ESC is beeping, we will first set the neutral point by pressing the set button once. After that, full throttle and press the set button once more, and then full reverse and press the set button one more time. At this stage, the radio has been calibrated. And the motor orientation is correct. For some reason, if the motor is spinning in the reverse order, you can either swap the motor wires or change the motor orientation from the settings. And as you can see that the motor is not stuttering or there is no cog. So the Max 6 is a perfect option for the stock X-Maxx motor. The Max 6 G2 would stutter the motor and it's not recommended at all for the stock motor on the X-Maxx. Now if you want, you can program the ESC through the set button as well, or you could use this program card. So to use the program card, just unplug the fan connector and use the extension wire to connect the programming card to the ESC and power up the speed controller. And now we can program the Max 6. So first we have the running mode. Now we only have two modes on this, forward brake and forward reverse with brake. The default is option 2 and that's what I'll leave it at. Next we have the LiPo cells. I'll keep this to auto calculated. Third is low voltage cutoff. I'll set this to the maximum, which is at 4. Followed by ESC thermal protection. So you could set this to 105 or 125 degrees Celsius. The lower the better. Fifth is motor thermal protection. Now this does not have the motor temperature sensor, so it cannot detect the temperature, so it's disabled by default. Sixth is motor rotation. So if your truck is moving in the reverse direction, you could change the motor rotation from here or physically swap the wires. Number 7 is the BEC voltage. Now the stock X-Maxx servo is rated up to 6 volts. Unless you're using a high voltage servo, keep this at 6 volts. Otherwise you could burn up your steering servo or even the receiver. Number 8 is the max brake force. So here you can set the desired braking amount that you'd like, but depending on the condition you're driving at, you might want to increase this or change it as per the traction of the surface. Number 9 is max reverse force. So how strongly should the motor work in the reverse direction? Then number 10 is the punch level or the amount of acceleration that you would want to have, or how strong the acceleration should be. So the default is 3, and on the Max 6 we have 5 levels of punch settings. I've set this to 5 for now. And last is the drag brake option. Most likely you'd want to have this at 0. So whenever you have the throttle in neutral, you could set a certain amount of brake or set this to 0, which is default, and the truck will coast freely. And reconnect the fan port. So there you have it. The Max 6 is the best option in my opinion for the Traxxas X-Maxx, especially if you want to use the ESC with the stock motor. As you can tell that the motor is not stuttering or it's not cogging, unlike how it used to with the Max 6 G2. So that's about it. The Hobbywing Max 6 version 1 is the best for the X-Maxx. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. If yes, please make sure to like it and give it a thumbs up. And if this is your first time on my channel, please do subscribe for more such videos. That's about it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.